Fit for Life Radio, episode number 100.
There's a way better way to say that.
I'm leading,
no.
prefacing the dose because we have head nutrition coach at Coastal Strength and Fitness, Diego Infante Diaz.
Damn, man, I'm gonna have to give you some like Spanish.
Hey, he didn't even know how to say 20.
How do you say 20, man?
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, Diaz. That's where I'm done.
Damn, bro, it's the size of Starbucks.
What? 20?
Yeah.
That's 20?
That's right.
How's that? What makes 20 a size?
20 ounces.
Oh.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Hey, everyone's like nutrition expert.
Watch me be wrong. I'm going to end up being... that's correct.
Someone will let us know if it was right
Oh,
or not.
man.
Diego Diaz.
20.
Who is still reigning champ for
the most downloads, right?
For the most popular episode of all time.
That's you, man.
Was that the ice cream one or the...
that one was good too.
First one, wasn't it?
Yeah,
or
the first one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the highest.
Emotional
by far.
eating one. We need to do another one of emotional eating, though.
Yeah.
Because that's a conversation that, like...
I think we should.
I feel like we can never talk enough about it.
Yeah. But it's like the most common thing.
Yeah.
Everybody does it. Like it's...
Yeah, everybody needs just reinforcements on that subject.
Mm-hmm.
If you're curious...
Pretty much on a consistent basis.
It is episode...
That was a while back, too.
Way back. Let's see. 8.
Yeah.
Overcoming eating disorders and finding balance with Diego Diaz.
He's going to quit after you keep saying this stuff.
And then...
the worst at Spanish.
The other one was more recent. Probably
the ice cream one?
During COVID.
That was.
Yeah, that was...
That one's going to be harder to find. It's in the middle.
You better watch out, though. Amanda's catching you. She's got the listens.
Oh, here we go.
What?
Number 50.
Amanda.
Number 53. Ice cream.
She talks about emotional eating, right?
Yeah.
That's one of her main things.
Just
in
a different way.
She's a little more of an expertise in that area than I do.
Mm-hmm. Ice cream, abs, trade-offs, and living lean with Coach Diego Diaz. Diego.
Look at that. All wide range of topics.
Everything.
Ice cream, emotional eating, anorexia. How are they related?
Crypto.
You don't know crypto, bro.
And we missed a big opportunity when we did the episode on Mexican food.
Oh, I know.
Oh, dude, I would have walked out of here as soon as you said polo.
Dude.
That, like, I cannot let that go.
I'm never going to forget that you called it polo.
I know. Who would have thought they had a vaccine for for chicken?
Oh, man.
All right. So today we want to... So Diego and I read a book called Effortless by Greg McKeown, who also wrote Essentialism, which is one of my favorite books.
I still need to read that one.
And there was just so many parallels with Effortless lessons with your nutrition and kind of the habits and lifestyle change that takes. And again, Diego does most of the nutrition coaching, so in the trenches. So there's a lot to relate to, individuals and scenarios. And that's what we want to talk about today, is just kind of those lessons and what you can learn from it and from Effortless. So first I'll go over Effortless a little bit. So Greg's book, Effortless, make it easier to do what matters most. And essentially, the premise is, how do we make essential work, in this case, we're talking about food stuff, so how do we make eating healthier easier? And realize that it should be effortless, and all we really have now is our habits, and our environment makes the things that aren't as ideal to be doing effortless. So we're just trying to flip that, right? Because you think about it, packaged crackers are easy to overeat, but you also don't have to cook them. They also come packaged and don't go bad. They're cheap. You can keep them in your pantry 8 steps from your couch, right? So snacking and overeating has become effortless for most of us. So when you bring awareness to that, then you want to make those things, the easy things, harder, that aren't as good for you, and then the more ideal habits you want to make effortless, make the harder things easier.
And I think it's a pretty, like, whenever someone chooses that they want to make changes in their habits and their lifestyle, right? I think a lot of times we approach it as this is a hard change. So instead of approaching it that way, one of the kind of phrasings of the book puts, and that actually resonated with me a lot, is how can we make this as easy as possible? So it talks about the principle of inverting. So instead of looking at it being in a hard manner and this is going to be a hard approach, how can I simplify it? How can I make it as easy as possible for me to be able to do consistently, right? So I think that's one of the main things that we want to take out of this is just start asking that question. How can I make it easy? And then start trying to figure answers for that.
Yeah, and often it's doing less, starting with smaller bites, right? If you're doing a diet overhaul, someone could say, follow this meal plan. And you're thinking, okay, that's easy enough. But the reality is, what if you haven't been grocery shopping consistently? What if you don't cook your food? What if you don't know how to cook?
You got to pick up like 5 new habits.
So just following a meal plan means, a bunch of new things, and then you're going to feel overwhelmed and quit, right? So you would then take that and break that down, like Diego said. How do I make this as easy as possible? And for most people, it's going to go all the way back to controlling that food environment and grocery shopping. So make a grocery list. Now, what if you eliminate all the other stuff you were overwhelmed with and just said, I'm going to make a grocery list and then just buy what's on that list and start there?
Yeah. So there's a saying, and there's a few things that I want to touch on what you just said, but there's a saying on the book that says, easy is smooth and smooth is fast. No, slow is smooth and smooth is fast, or something along the lines. I would need to double check that. But basically addressing that a lot of times when we start something, we want to sprint towards it, right? So we need to make this radical change, and we think we need to cut out all the snacking. We need to cook all our meals at home, no eating out, making sure we meal prep all of our meals. When in reality, it's like, let's start making smaller changes. Let's start doing things that are going to be sustainable. And then that over time, it's going to be a faster rate of progress where, I mean, if you think about it in the past, how many times have you tried a diet and you've been consistent for a while, but then go back to old habits? Repeat that cycle. I bet for many of you guys listening, that's been about 10, 15 years, if not even more, right? So, but then if you try a sustainable approach where you are making smaller changes, and it doesn't feel as fast in the beginning, but then fast forward where you do that consistently for 1-2 years, then you have a pretty sustainable approach and sustainable nutrition that you can maintain long term. So instead of being 15 years of going back and forth and not really finding a solution, then you took those 2 years, and then you have something you can follow long term, right?
Yeah, and with that approach, people do it the opposite, right? They're like, I'm gonna do this diet. It's gonna be a grind, and I'm gonna grit my teeth and suffer through it, right? Until you eventually just break.
Stop.
Yeah. And that's the thing that you're trying to switch, whereas it's almost uncomfortable for people to be like, let me make this easier. Let me make this effortless.
Because there's no struggle inherent like every day. It's not like you're grinding every day to just go grocery shopping on Sunday.
And if it doesn't feel hard, it's not going to work.
Yeah,
right?
I think people get scared when something doesn't feel really difficult. Like, there's no way you can make change if something's not difficult every day, and that's clearly wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I even think back to my own journey, like, because sometimes it's hard for us to go back to when we were beginners. But yeah, I couldn't cook. I learned to cook so that I could eat, foods that I was more in control of. But it started with, let me buy a lot of microwavable stuff, and then eventually now I'll start to buy the separate ingredients, and then over the years you have all these different cooking gadgets that come out. Well, let me try some of them, and some of them what you like or you like for a little while, and then you revert back to the things that ultimately feel easier and more effortless. And it's funny, so I'll share an example. and this shows how nuanced and simple this can be, and how you realize it's just a lot of experimenting. Potatoes, right? And I mean, we've gone back and forth with, I like potatoes, and this, I would buy the canned potatoes, and you make fun of me because they're so easy to prepare, and this and that.
Well,
he makes fun of you because
they taste like pure metal.
They taste like metal. That's why he makes fun of you.
I stand by my canned potatoes.
Your metal potatoes.
But anyways, I would, because I typically eat a lot of carbs, so I need to, you have to prepare a lot if you're having like eating your carbs, rice, potato, whatever. Whereas rice, it's easy. You put it in the, rice maker, boom, bang. But I got in a groove or a habit of, so in the morning, I'll throw all my sweet potatoes in a pot and just let them boil, which takes, I'll cut them up into quarters, throw them in there. So it takes 2 minutes to do that. Then they'll cook. I go do something else. And then when they're done, I pull them off, dump them, let them cool. And then, boom, throw them in a big container, and then can have them with my meals throughout the day, right? And so it's essentially a little daily prep, but it got to where it barely takes any time. I do other stuff. I like them like that because then I can mash them up. So I'll take them and then mash them and put in some, flavorings, spices or whatever, and I enjoy it, right? Whereas before I would tell Diego, oh yeah, I like, because we would share stuff and he would be on a certain potato kick, and I'd be like, I just can't. I like potatoes, but they're inconvenient, right? But again, you have to find ways that work with your lifestyle. And then so now I guess what I'm getting at is it's effortless, right? Whereas before I would be like, I'm just going to stick to rice even though I'm a little bored of it because it's too hard to prepare the potatoes, right? And have enough volume that I needed to eat. So finding a way, well, let me just start with, this, and then it becomes effortless to now I just wake up and I just do it. It's not even a thought of inconvenience.
And part of it too is like, because I pretty much do the same thing as you do, as far as like, I'll cook them in the morning, or sometimes even if I cook too much, I have them from the previous day, right? So I just kind of cycle in through the next day because I mostly do the sweet potatoes. But also at the beginning, like, it might require a little bit of effort to make it effortless, right? Because now it's so ingrained in your life that you've repeatedly done it that it's almost mindless. So it has become effortless. In the beginning, you might need to put a little more like thought process, and then figure out the system that's going to work for you. Like you tried that approach, it didn't work, then you had to try a different approach. But now it's to the point where it's pretty simple to do, and you've done it consistently. And
one little nuance of it is, so I don't like to eat the peel, right? Especially when I'm eating a ton. And so I didn't like to prepare the potatoes because I would have to peel them all. When I have like 2 or 3 pounds a day. So like it's just more time. And I figured out, well, when I just cut them up, boil them,
comes right off.
The peels pop right off, right? So where literally I just pinch them off, and it's more effortless and it's easier, and then I don't have the mental,
So now I'll paint it this way: if you want to even do it more effortless, and you don't care about the peels and all that stuff, like you just got it up, put it in the microwave. Yeah, it takes.
So and we talked a couple minutes. So we talked about
like
that.
3 minutes.
And in my process, I did microwave them, but I don't like them as much. Like they get almost where like
they get a little dry on the outside.
Yeah, it's a different texture. Yeah. Now I did find when you take a wet paper towel and wrap it.
So what you need to do. Here's a secret: you need to put a little water in it, cover it with a paper towel, and then kind of almost boil it in the microwave. So you need to put a little water at the bottom.
You're a potato expert.
But anything potatoes, just come at me.
So to tie it back to helping all you guys is whoever's listening. Potatoes. But you see, look, we've been doing this for years and years, and you still experiment. You're still like you still try different things, and ultimately you try to find ways to where you get it done. Yeah. Whatever you're trying to do, whatever helps you, and understand like the goals are nuanced. If you're having like it all depends on your goals and your preferences. Like I prefer more carbs and have to eat a lot, so I need to find a convenient way to cook more potatoes. Where for someone, maybe you just have one little potato and pop in the microwave. But yes, so you're looking for ways to make it effortless.
I mean, on that kind of same note, one of the points that it touches, and kind of going back to some of the points you said, one of the stuff that you can make it as easy as possible. So like grocery shopping, right? You mentioned some people are going to have a hard time finding the time to be able to do it. So maybe you're busier, you have kids, you have stuff going on, you have driving them around, work. So finding the time to go grocery shopping, well, nowadays it's super simple where you can do it from your phone, right? So you can build your list. Most applications will make it as simple as possible to where you can save the list and pretty much purchase the same things on a week-to-week basis. So that pretty much there is saving you time. So anything that you can automate like that, there's going to be a lot less time invested and a lot less thought process that goes behind it. Then take advantage of those tools. I mean, you have the same with like meal delivery services. Now, they offer a lot of a barrier to entry as far as the cost, right? They're going to be a lot pricier. But if it's something that you value and you know it's going to make it a lot easier to be consistent, that's another tool that you can use to make it as easy as possible. So try to find those options. Again, we're trying to, there's no like one thing fits all. We're trying to find easiest way for you to make it effortless. So whatever that looks like, explore your options. That might be online grocery shopping. That might be even delivered to your house. That might be meal deliveries. There's things like HelloFresh where if you like to cook, then you can have the actual ingredients delivered. Yeah. So there's ways that you can make that a little bit easier and simpler and automated as well. So just like thought process that goes behind it.
Yeah. And sometimes something like HelloFresh, you also have to realize it's okay to be in different seasons and stages with your skill set. Maybe you invest in something like HelloFresh early on because now you're kind of investing more money, so you're more likely to do it, and it's going to help you learn to cook, right? Because now you have this food sitting in front of you and you don't want to waste it, and you have the recipe. All you have to do is follow it, and then you do that for 2 or 3 months, and you get some skills, and then you're like, you know what? I think I feel more confident, or I found some recipes that I enjoy, and I can do this on my own. In the book, they share a story and they talk about where to start. Start with the first obvious action. And they talk about Netflix and how the founders of Netflix, had this big ultimate vision for Netflix, but they knew the technology wasn't even really where it needed to be, kind of to get to where they wanted it. But they still started with the first obvious action, which for them was just mailing DVDs to people, right? Which you look at Netflix now and you're like, if you were to try to start Netflix now and you know what it could be, and you said, well, just mail DVDs, you'd be like, that's stupid. I'm not even going to start that. That's not going to work.
Just look at Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, started out with books, bro.
Like, it's just ebooks, and then it's this monster. I bet you if you asked Jeff Bezos in the beginning, like, do you see Amazon being this, and I don't know what's it been, like 15 years? He would have been like, no, there's no way. But he wanted to start his business. He this was like he's a smart guy, and he knew that it was the easiest option to go because he looked at all the stats. So that was his first obvious step, right?
And the key is you get started with imperfect action on something that you can actually execute.
And then you hone and get better as you go.
Yeah.
So with clients and people you see, what would you, considering kind of in general, most people's, biggest obstacles, and then what would you say is a good first obvious action for most people?
For most people, I would say cut out snacking. That's a super simple one because most people are going to snack, especially mindless snacking at night. That's going to be one of the biggest ones.
So now let's take that.
How do you break it down?
How do we, where would you have them start with that? Just willpower?
Oh no, like go all the way to the root cause, right? So don't bring it home. Now, not everyone has the opportunity to not bring it home. So dealing with clients, I know a lot of you guys have kids, and usually you're going to have snacks for the kids, right? So if that's the case, let's say ideally, best case scenario, when you go to the grocery store, you order your groceries, you're not bringing that stuff home. But let's say you do need to bring stuff for the kids. Options. You can buy stuff that you know you're not going to be as tempted to do, but your kids are still going to enjoy. Option number 2, find a place where you don't frequent as much, or it's going to be harder for you to go get that food. So instead of having it super easily available in the pantry, maybe you hide it in another room. Maybe you have it somewhere else where it's not going to be super easy that you open the door and that's going to be there. You have to pretty much go slightly out of your way to get it. So that would be cutting it back to that's the first simple, obvious step, right?
Yeah. And everyone knows, right, especially if you're eating some meals, that snacking typically is just out of habit, out of boredom and all these other reasons. So, unless you need to gain weight, and that's one frame of mind to put yourself into, people with kids, is realize kids are growing, right? They need to grow. They need extra calories. They need easy calories. So convenient snacks can have their place. But typically as an adult, we don't need to grow, right? So we don't need those extra easy calories. So, sometimes if you can...
We need the opposite then.
Yeah.
For the most part, especially if you're looking into getting your nutrition in check.
So that, mentally is a good place to get. But, yes.
Going back, and I'll interrupt a little bit, going back, one of the other things is one of the habits that we see consistently, and you guys know this, is getting enough protein in, right? So most people don't need plenty of protein. Usually they don't even need protein with every meal. So if you want to take the first obvious step is just plan out your week. So not even necessarily worrying about grocery shopping, that would be the following step, but how does your week look like including protein in every meal, right? So take 5 minutes out of your day and write down, hey, this meal is going to have this protein component, this meal is going to have this protein component, and then just plan out your meal like that, and that would be a first obvious step. Even if initially you don't follow through, but you have a pretty clear vision of how that week is going to look like, and then following steps after that.
Yeah, and even with something like that, like you said, plan it out, and even if you don't do it every single day, if you do it 3 days, then that's still a victory, and then maybe the next week you'll do 4, and then you'll do 4 again, and then you just get better and better. So doing that is a very good first step to, like you said, do something imperfectly so that, later on you continue to get better.
Yeah. And on that, start seeing the imperfections and the small failures. And failures usually gets this negative connotation, right? But whenever you're trying something and it doesn't go as planned, that's going to be a failure. And we're going to do it every day on many different subjects or many different things that we do. But look at it as almost as little victories that you're trying. You are making an effort. So even if, let's say, you quote unquote failed, you're still trying to make that change. So instead of framing it as something negative and something where you get down on yourself and you're hard on yourself, look at it from a perspective I'm trying, I'm making this effort to make some changes. So it's going to be part of the process.
And the book talks about that. So after kind of establishing what's the simplest, easiest thing to start with, it then goes on to make progress, you have to have the courage to be rubbish. So obviously rubbish.
What a good British word.
So then in 1959, a British industrialist named Henry Kremer.
Man, that would have been an unfortunate last name.
Had a dream. At what age do you not be a 16-year-old?
I don't know.
When do we grow out of this?
I don't think.
I don't think it ever happens.
Yeah. I don't even know. He launched the Kremer Prize. Generous rewards meant to incentivize designers to build aircraft. So anyways, the courage to be rubbish. So like Diego just said, you're going to be bad at these things and skills and habits you try to change.
Yes.
You can't just, I tried to make this recipe and it was awful. Oh, how often have you cooked? I haven't, or I haven't in 20 years.
This is the first time I've ever cooked.
Well, you're going to be bad at it. That's the bottom line. So you have to keep doing it, get better, and be okay with being not so great. And it's weird. How come after we're 18 years old, when you turn an adult, all of a sudden, up to then, it's okay. You encourage kids, try it. You don't have to be good and practice and all this. And then when we become adults, it's it's not acceptable.
It's it's the end of the world if you try and fail.
To be bad at something.
You have to know how to do everything.
So realize it is a lifestyle, and it's a completely different lifestyle than the one you've been living, and it involves skill sets that you have to build.
And if you're going to start to cook, take it again to try to simplify and make it as easy as possible, right? Don't start with a recipe that's going to have 23 ingredients, and then you don't even know what to do with them.
3 advanced cooking techniques.
Yeah. Start with something super simple. Start with learning how to properly bake a chicken breast, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there is a lot to it, and a lot of people actually don't like chicken breast because they'll cook it and it ends up dry,
cook
right?
The crap out of it.
Yeah, because they overcook it. So learn how to, one of the things, you can just learn how to properly cook a chicken breast, and that's going to be a lot simpler. It's not as complex. You don't need to go buy all these different ingredients. You just need little chicken breast and some
seasoning.
Yeah, garlic, salt, pepper, however whatever seasonings you want to put in that. I mean, do you ever really need more of the garlic, salt, and pepper though?
Not really.
No.
Like, I feel like
Not for polo.
Is that what's in the vaccine? The
Yeah,
polio vaccine?
You want to talk about pace?
Yeah, and then just to confirm what Diego said, then in chapter 10 of the book, Greg talks about pace, and
we talk about it.
Well, we're talking
Here's
about
a co-author.
slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
There you go.
And I think this one is so overlooked because everyone wants to get there as fast as possible, but you don't realize if you're not mastering this stuff, you're just gonna crash and burn.
Yeah, I mean it's like and the book kind of touches on this a little bit. It's like a sprint cycle, right? So you sprint to try to do this, you put all your effort, then you kind of crash and burn, then you stop doing it, then because you lost some time in there, you want to do it again and you want to sprint again, and then the cycle just keeps repeating and repeating, where if you go slow, so there's a story in the book that I really, really like. So it's about the first expedition, I believe it was to Antarctica, right? So there was 2 boats that were in the mission to do them, and they sailed at the same time. I believe it was 2 different countries, but they took the different approach. So one boat, they would do 15 miles every day, no matter the weather condition. So if it was like a perfect day, they would stop at 15 miles. If there was a storm, they would stop at 15 miles. The other team would go as fast as possible on the good days and completely rest on the bad days, right?
If you know me, you know I'm always on the run, up early and home late, so having a 3-hour morning routine isn't really in the cards for me. What is in the cards is AG1. It's a fast way to get vitamins and minerals I need to perform. I first gave AG1 a try because I wanted a single solution that helps support my entire body by filling in nutrient gaps and simplifying my morning routine. Since drinking AG1 daily, I've always felt strong and energized and ready to attack the day. Not only does AG1 deliver my daily dose of vitamins, minerals, pre- and probiotics, and more, it's a powerful, healthy habit that's also powerfully simple. It's 1 scoop mixed in water once a day and every day. I know that AG1 is giving my body high-quality nutrition. Every batch of AG1 goes through a rigorous testing process, so you know that it's safe. And AG1 ingredients are sourced for absorption, potency, and nutrition density. AG1 is a supplement that I trust to provide the support my body needs daily, and that's why I'm excited to welcome them as a new partner. Here is your chance to start every day this season with a gift to yourself. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase exclusively at drinkag1.com/provengrit. That's drinkag1.com/provengrit. Check it out. If you know me, you know I'm always on the run, up early and home late, so having a 3-hour morning routine isn't really in the cards for me. What is in the cards is AG1. It's a fast way to get vitamins and minerals I need to perform. I first gave AG1 a try because I wanted a single solution that helps support my entire body by filling in nutrient gaps and simplifying my morning routine. Since drinking AG1 daily, I've always felt strong and energized and ready to attack the day. Not only does AG1 deliver my daily dose of vitamins, minerals, pre- and probiotics, and more, it's a powerful, healthy habit that's also powerfully simple. It's 1 scoop mixed in water once a day and every day. I know that AG1 is giving my body high-quality nutrition. Every batch of AG1 goes through a rigorous testing process, so you know that it's safe. And AG1 ingredients are sourced for absorption, potency, and nutrition density. AG1 is a supplement that I trust to provide the support my body needs daily, and that's why I'm excited to welcome them as a new partner. Here is your chance to start every day this season with a gift to yourself. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase exclusively at drinkag1.com/provengrit. That's drinkag1.com/provengrit. Check it out.
So the team that went the 15 miles consistently got there, I believe it was like a week and a half before the team that sprinted, because they would just go, and no matter the conditions, no matter what happened, it was the same pace throughout, right? So a lot of times I feel like when we are really motivated and we want to start something. We want to make this drastic change. So we want to start like redoing our pantry, cooking all of our meals, making sure we're only whole foods, not snacking, tracking our food, and we want to make all these changes where it's going to be really hard to maintain that pace.
Eliminating all our favorite foods.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
But if you choose to set a pace that you're going to be able to maintain and then do that consistently, then over time that becomes effortless. And then you add something else and maintain that pace. So usually instead of like trying to make a 360-degree change and trying to just make all these radical changes, find something that you'll be able to sustain and then almost like have the willpower or the, I don't want to phrase it that way, but to stop even though you feel you can do more in that moment.
Yeah. And when we talk, if we break that down into specific tactics, the slow and steady and smooth, and that's where I think people miss the boat with something like tracking calories or macros, because different approaches are going to have pros and cons and gives and takes, right? So if you're someone who, something like the Whole30 where you can only eat all these foods and you got to eliminate all these, stresses you out, well then choose to track calories or your macros, because you don't have to change all the foods you're eating. Yeah. You're just going to learn to track and what's in your food, right? But you can literally barely change anything in your day. So if you're going, to Starbucks, or if you have Doritos every day, you can literally keep doing those same things. You don't have to change all that, and you just focus on your portions, right? That's essentially what it's bringing to the table. But also on the flip side, if tracking numbers and portions stresses you out, then don't worry about those things. Maybe just make better food choices, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately, if you want to be, six-pack Steve, then eventually you're going to need to do both of those, right? But, and this was for me too, I never did either of those all at once, right? So maybe you practice the skill of learning portions and content, calorie content, and then you kind of factor in trade-offs on specific food types, whole foods for getting rid, and you're able to combine it. Then obviously you're going to end up where you want it to. But hopefully that kind of helps it click on like practical.
Yeah,
real.
I mean in the beginning, like a pace that you can maybe be able to maintain is just have 3 meals a day, right? So I mean that's one of the habits we try to instill the most, because
it creates structure.
And most of the foods we eat as snacks is just like mindless snacking. It's high-calorie foods that are not going to really add any great nutrition to your day. So it can be something as simple as that, even if in the beginning, and I think people get frustrated because they might not start seeing weight loss from the very get-go, right? And like, well, I'm making this conscious effort. Yeah, but you're setting yourself with a solid base of habits that then over time you're going to start seeing, and it becomes easier to see those results and maintain them than starting hard from the beginning. Yeah,
and allowing yourself to learn, and again, to take it slow. What if you tell yourself, I'm not even making any changes, I'm just going to track my food just to learn what's in it? Well, guess what happens? Then someone eventually looks at their Starbucks drink, the 700 calories, and they learn, this is 700 calories. And then they go, and you could tell someone to cut out the Starbucks drink and eat 8-ounce sirloin steak and potato, and they'd be like, no way, that's so much food. But then they track it and learn that's 600 calories. Oh, and it's way more protein, and you're more satiated. Yeah. So then they learn without no pressure. You didn't have to overhaul your whole life. You were just tracking, and you're like, wait a second. Yeah, that drink had like barely any nutrition and was more calories in this meal that I used to avoid because I thought it was a lot of food.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you then choose, no one's having to tell you, you choose, say, the steak and potato meal and skipping the sugary drink, right?
Yeah.
You didn't have to have a thing tell you can never, ever have sugary drinks again. You committed to going slow, learning, making mistakes, because, maybe you drank the sugary drink and then logged it and then realized maybe there's different options and then plugged in other food. That's the process, right?
Yeah.
And, with you coaching people the way you do, through our communication, through the app, very personal, people get started so excited, and I think this is it. This is going to change everything in a month, but really what they don't understand, and you give them the plan, But the reality is the progress comes from the true grit and daily,
Yeah,
like
and
that process
checking it.
right there for you to notice, hey, like that sugary drinks, you're going to crash and burn. There's no protein, and it's actually more calories in this meal, right? You want to speak to that process of, let's talk about, because we kind of went over that, the grit, the failing, the learning, slow. So after that comes, so you have start, simplify, progress, and pace, right?
Yeah.
Now, like we said, you're kind of establishing the pace of, you're learning these little things daily. Then after that is when you really get to the results, right? So with the results, let's talk about compounding results. So that's kind of the benefit of Effortless, is you create things that compound on top of each other, right? So now if you create the skill of knowing what's in your food, you don't eventually have to track as much, right?
Yeah.
Because you can look and see and make better decisions. So now it's all becoming easier, right? You don't have to feel like, oh, I have no clue what's in here. I have to learn it. I have to look it up. And so those benefits kind of compound on each other.
Yeah. I mean, and kind of compounding there, you can even look at it as far as actions, right? So what actions kind of compound? So something as simple as like meal prepping, right? And learning that skill. Over time, it takes a little extra effort initially to do, but then over time, throughout the week, you're pretty much like don't have to put any additional effort there.
Yeah. Well, we can look at, say, my example of cooking the potatoes, right? So now I have my starch for my meals the rest of the day, which ends up taking me an extra 6 minutes of time. But say you were going to go out to eat or like go pick up Chick-fil-A. You actually end up spending more time, right? Say for that to get that meal. And then you only have that one meal. Now you're going to have to go out, maybe you go out to lunch, right? So now that's way extra time. So the reality is, by putting in the time to learn the skill of cooking and prepping, you actually will save yourself more time in the long run, which then you can now you have gym time, right? Now you have rest and relax time, and it compounds in that kind of a way.
Yeah, I mean, same goes for grocery shoppings and planning out your week, right? Because if not, then you're in that moment trying to figure out, let me figure out what I'm going to eat. Let's say you choose a quote-unquote easy route and try to do fast food. You're still going to need to look up the menu. You're still going to need to look up your options. You're still going to need to drive there or go on a DoorDash. And there's still additional time, right? Where if you just put that time to planning your week, it kind of goes from there and kind of compounds from there. But so as far as the kind of some of the skills and going into results with clients, so it's interesting to see because everyone has their own process in it, and that's kind of where we see where with failures, like everyone is going to have their own little failures, and everyone goes in cycles. So I had a client, and so this is almost like learning skill tracking as a skill, right? So I had a client looking at her log. Usually, for the most part, I get most reports on the numbers and stuff like that, and we go over that. But at times where we see that we are not seeing those results, then we'll dig a little deeper. So I start looking at her food log, and then you guys will find it interesting. She has fish and chips as one meal that she ate that day. What is the amount of calories that you guys think that meal has?
If you were to ask me my
At least
Fish-
at least 1,000.
fish and chips, I'd say is 1,400.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's
So-
both fried. There's gonna be huge portions.
And there's like a ton of breading on fish usually when they do fish
Yeah.
and chips.
So it's logged as 350 calories,
Ain't
right?
no
Or
way.
something along the lines.
Ain't no way, coach.
So, yeah, exactly. So that's where it's like, that is going to be a little of a skill where I'm confident that person didn't do it as far like, ooh, like I'm going to get away with
it wasn't
this.
nefarious.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they saw it and like, well, this is the lowest calorie, it looks attractive, right? Because I'm going to have a little less. But at the end of the day, even though it does look attractive, that's not going to yield anything. Because we plugged in 350 calories, it doesn't mean it's not going to have more calories. But that is also a little of a skill set to learn how to plug properly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I go into the thing and I look at it, and it's like 200 grams of carbs, 150 grams of fat, and like some grams of protein. and 300 calories. So clearly, like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's just
right?
it's
just
wrong.
Like someone just plugged it in and they didn't even put thought process into it. But you're just looking at it as tracking and you're like, okay, this makes sense. But so it's a skill that you start kind of developing as you go, and the more you do it, you'll start see it. Okay, this doesn't make sense. Maybe that's not the option I want to do. And then kind of the same as going out to eat, right? So if you're going out to eat, usually you have to count that most of your meals are going to be about 1,000, 1,500 calories, if not even more, depending on what you're eating. So it's also something that is a skill that you kind of want to develop as far as food choices that you're going to have out, and then just being okay with kind of plugging that in there.
And then here's the hard part. This is why this is all hard. So then you know what? That meal probably wasn't 300 calories, right? So it was 1,400, which then leads yourself to the next step, the next skill of now you have to actually eat less, right? Because maybe you start to pinpoint, I do have more calories coming in than I thought. And now you have to develop the skill of, okay, I'm actually seeing this. It's making sense why maybe I'm stuck, and now I have to eat less, which is hard, right?
It always is.
So then that could come down to, well, you would have had to have 1/4 of your fish and chips meal, right? That's one way to eat less. Or you could
do like a better choice and have something like you could have grilled fish and a baked potato or something like that, you know?
Which now you get to have the portions, and it's less calories.
Yeah.
That's a version of eating less, right? It's not going to taste as good, maybe at first, but...
Or you can have really low calories during the day, right? And keep that a little bit in check and have your meals be lighter. We still will be eating less, but maybe you can kind of make up for that a little bit with eating more high-volume foods like vegetables and lean proteins. So, and then that's one thing, like that's another thing that it's important to consider. It's going to be harder when you're trying to diet and lose weight and you're going to be hungry, right? So hunger, usually it's hard to deal with. It makes us really uncomfortable. Find food options that are going to make it harder for you to feel hungry. Now, hunger, and we talked about this, it's not something we necessarily want to avoid and kind of be afraid of. It's going to happen. It's part of the cycle. But if you try to minimize it as much as possible, then there's going to be less likelihood that it's going to affect you. So try to find food options, and this only comes with practice, that are going to be high volume. So that means that they don't have a lot of calories, but have a lot of volume as far as food size. And then they're going to be pretty satiating for you. So usually most of those foods fall in the realm of fruit, right? Especially something crunchy like an apple, and it's going to be high fiber. Things that are high in fiber, potatoes, sweet potatoes, as far as like starchy carbs. Most veggies and mostly proteins are going to fall in that category. So if you base most of your meals off of those, and then you add a little bit of things you like, you're less likely that you're going to be hungry, and then you give into something.
Yeah. So all various strategies, and another one which we could probably do a whole separate podcast on is managing hunger, and also accepting that you're going to be hungry. You're going to be hungry. A lot of people, I think they think, look, if we've been overeating and spending time being full, we're used to that sensation, and any hunger is quite alarming. But to lose weight, I mean, that's the signal that our body's signaling that we are eating less calories, right? There's really no way around it. And for one thing that's always cemented for me, and again, this is just a strategy, is, so yeah, I've been like just balling out, just eating, kind of whatever, ad lib, like 80-20 beef. Sour cream on everything, and weekends eating out, all that. No real, like, a lot looser, right? Which was a choice. And then it's pretty interesting. And then after about a month, like, you
cut back a little bit.
When you start from a leaner place, you see the body fat come on, visually. And then but I wasn't weighing in. And it's funny, this is what's great about being a coach is, and when you get to a point to where you maintain and you give yourself this range, right? But then as a coach, it's fun to check in with things so that you can be kind of sharp with, hey, this is what clients have to go through and what they notice and things like that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to, let me weigh myself. I haven't done that. And yet it's crazy, crazy how easily you can put on like 6-7 pounds.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, it was like from the last time I weighed myself, it was like 7 pounds up. And that wasn't trying to gain. Sometimes you go in like Diego mode where you're like, I want to gain muscle and bulk, and you actually track and check, and you keep yourself
Data.
honest, right?
Yeah.
I had no data. It was just like, I'm gonna make.
Let's go, baby.
And boom, 7 pounds, and it's like, oh man, that's crazy. And
How long did it took you to put 7 pounds on?
Like 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see how like fast it is.
Yeah.
if
How quick
you're
that can snowball
not
too.
paying any attention, and
So then I was like, okay, so weighing in was a start. Cool. Now I was like, all right, I need to just have one day. That's kind of like, because I know when I die, like 2,000 calories and I'll lose. So I was like, I just need to have a structured day of low calories.
And being hungry.
And let me just do that. Let me throw that in there, right? Since I've been gluttonous for a month, let me just throw in a low calorie day. And sure enough, quick reminder of, but I had the same breakfast I was having, like a bigger breakfast, and then lunch. So by the time I got to dinner, I'd have this really small dinner. And then, I was hungry, right? And all I could think about, I'm sitting there, and the day's over, and I'm just like, dude, I'm starving, And you just think about, food and everything.
Yeah.
And it reminded me, so when I do normally diet or I'm, okay, like, hey, I'm keeping these calories at this point, and I know there's going to be hunger, I do so much better, and I know this through trial and error. When I do save majority of my calories for dinner, because if I'm hungry during the day, I'll notice it, but then move on because I'm like, I have stuff to do and I'm doing stuff, and it's just so much easier to be hungrier. But then at night, I packed it in. There's a lot less distraction, right? So if I kind of get to have that meal, say majority of my carbs at dinner, it helps fill me up. Like Diego talked about food volume. I'm good, right? I don't dwell on it. So,
yeah, I will say on that, it just gives people a lot of times will take one example and think it applies to everyone, right?
Oh yeah, it's definitely not for everyone because that's the approach most people do take, and they
ball out at dinner.
Right? Yeah. Remember, this is with the framework of I have this 2,000 calorie allotment, right? So that meal's done. So even if I finish, beef and a bunch of rice or potato, that's it.
And
right?
then people put a lot of comfort on feeling stuffed, like versus fullness, like satiety, and I think that is a big distinction because you are really in tune, and you're someone that's like has done it for years and years, so you know what satiety looks like, and okay, maybe it's like kind of in that line, but most people find comfort on feeling stuffed. Yeah. So I think it's worth making that distinction because I do have a lot of clients where it's the opposite, where it's like you probably need to have a little of a bigger, smaller dinner just because you are finding that comfort in feeling stuffed, and what is that doing for you? Yeah. And that's a whole another thing that we can dig into, but just not everyone takes that too hard and think you need a big dinner because that's not always the case. Yeah.
The other lesson I learned was, and I didn't add snacks. I still kind of had like 3 meals a day, but the biggest difference was the food reward, right? Adding the sour creams and the butters and the food, the stuff that makes things taste better. It's crazy how, in my mind, it was barely any extra food.
But then you start like also wanting it more consistently, which is crazy to see. So, I talked with you guys. I've been on a chocolate milk kick lately, and I mean, it's awesome. But at the same time, it's like now I find myself wanting that, right? So
it's your new normal is chocolate milk.
I mean, my day doesn't really change in structure. So I've been, like Gary said, I've been adding weight or quote unquote bulking for it's almost 3 years now, which just started with a year prior.
Just a perma bulk.
I know. It's almost 3 years, but my structure and my meals really haven't changed. The only thing that has changed is the portions, and I have added easy calories, but usually I try to add in my coconut oil, or I'll go higher fats in my meats and stuff like that. But then I started adding chocolate milk in there, and now I find myself just wanted chocolate milk all the time, and it's easy for it to add up. So I started and I did a cup, right, and that was like my daily kind of quote unquote treat or what I wanted, and I measured it. And then next thing you know, I'm like, well, I'm gonna add a little more, and next thing you know, I'm chugging milk from the bottle. I'm just like standing in the fridge, drinking milk from the bottle.
Next thing you know, you're on Google buying a cow.
But it's super easy to let things.
Then I have a house, so I have a place to keep the cow.
But it's super easy to let things like that kind of add up and creep up. And I mean, this is stuff we do on a daily basis, and we are really aware of our nutrition and all that revolves around that. So someone that is maybe not paying as much attention to their nutrition, it's super easy that they're going to start maybe with a little treat here and there, and then over time calories are going to add up.
Yeah, what does that turn into when you have no idea what's going on?
Yep.
Yeah. One thing to bring it back to the book a little bit, when it talks about effortless results, it talks about learn. And this is something we've talked about in the past, but it's always worth reinforcing. It's principles versus methods, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with any approach that we take, there are certain principles that we want to follow, and then there's a lot of methods. And a lot of times the methods can make it harder to follow. So think methods something like the keto diet or carnivore, right, where it's not possibly going to be as sustainable. You are going to see like faster results maybe if you're following it, well, not if you're doing keto or carnivore, but you could but I'm gonna leave that at there. But then long term you're not going to be able to sustain that, and you really didn't learn much from that. So aim to learn what the principles are. Usually it's trying to stick to whole foods, right? So mostly eating whole foods, eating lean proteins, having 3 meals a day. So learning those principles instead of sticking to the methods, because if we go from method to method, we're really, we can just kind of bounce around forever. But really trying to dive into the principles and seeing, okay, what are the things from this approach that is working for me, and then how can I apply this on a day-to-day basis without necessarily following this exact approach.
Yeah. And when you go the method way and just completely depend on the method, the big problem arises when you maybe choose a method that doesn't match with you, right? And then you think that
something wrong with you
are doing it wrong, that you are the problem. The reality is it's just not, the best approach for you, and you can do a different method. So for me, adding a lot of like food reward stuff, it doesn't work as well for me. Like for some people, maybe they have more tastier meals, they're more satisfied, right? Whereas me, I know through trial and error that I prefer like the food volume, right? The bigger portion. So having, less food reward, high dense calorie foods for, things that are lower density. And yeah, that's what works, right? But so if I went and did keto, I would fail miserably and then think,
something's wrong with me.
Something's wrong.
Why can't I do this
with me, right? And same things. I'm also type A and like numbers and structure. It gives me calm, right? So kind of knowing or tracking or having some kind of guardrails with that stuff works well, right? Whereas some people, like, that stresses them out, and they do better, with less things like that. Neither's right, neither's wrong, but it's finding what makes it effortless for you.
Yeah. And on that, I'm gonna almost do a little of a shameless plug, and not necessarily me, but just having a coach makes things a little bit more effortless, right? Because you have an extra set of eyes, you have someone that's guiding you, so you don't have to be doing all this research and be kind of looking around and trying to figure out and pinpoint what the problem is, when you have someone that has the knowledge and the expertise that are able to guide you through the process. So there's less time and effort invested into it. So maybe it is just something you can do for a short period of time, especially if you are in a place where you are finding it a hard time to get results, just so you can learn from it. And then from that, you can keep applying the same thing over and over. But it is something, it's another tool, right, where you can make it pretty much simplify it. Because you're cutting all the steps of having learned all this information, having to do all this trial and errors. You're still going to have to try. You're still going to have to put effort into it. But they're simplifying it as much as possible. Yeah,
in the book they talk about, and towards the end, leverage the best of what others know, right? And that's ultimately
a coach.
Having a coach in a nutshell. You're leveraging the knowledge that and experience they've already gained. Now, that doesn't mean for everyone that they can take it and run with it right away. But if you can really truly trust it, it can save you a lot of time.
Well, yeah, you have somebody narrowing your focus rather than being so scattered. Someone's pointing you a little more in the right direction at the very least.
Yeah. And a good example that we've had with clients is, we do recommend, hey, try 3 square meals a day and focus on simple go-to meals. And that's just from experience from coaching, in that over the long term, we've almost never seen people who do elaborate meals and rely on these super complex elaborate meals and are able to sustain that, and that becomes like this bedrock habit or method, right? So we'll have some clients and they'll take our word for it, and stick to simple stuff and maybe learn to appreciate it over time. And some people kind of no, and they're dead set on, super elaborate cookbooks and meals, but then over time, they kind of end up with the simple stuff, and they're like, you know what, you were right all along. But the reality is that's fine, but it's also okay if it took you 2 years to get to that point and just figure it out on your own.
And the coach is not going to be here to be like, this is exactly what you need to do this, and kind of push it on you, right? It's more like they're guiding you in the right direction. But, for example, for me as a coach, I'm still going to let you explore your options. So I have clients that will come to me, and I have 2 of them at the moment that want to explore intermittent fasting, right? So on a regular basis, I'm usually not a proponent of intermittent fasting. I mean, I'm not going to be the one that pushes that approach. But if someone wants to test it out and wants to try that option, then go ahead and try it. Like, give that a shot. If it's not working and I have one of them that they're realizing it's probably not the best option, maybe I do need to go back to 3 meals a day. Maybe I do need to go back to adding breakfast because I know I feel fuller, I feel more satiated, I feel more energy throughout the day. Okay, let's go that route and let's explore something else. So yeah, I mean, as like at the end, most people end up in the same range. But you still want to learn and explore your options before, and a coach is there for that, to help you guide you through all those things. Like if you're going to be fasting, okay, are you super hungry when you're eating? So if let's say you just came out from a 16-hour fast, are you just stuffing yourself because you start eating and hunger, it's like through the roof, and you're just going to eat everything inside, where you're eating 3,000 calories and defeating the purpose of fasting, right? And trying to restrict the amount of calories you're eating. Okay, then that's not the best approach. Maybe we need to add a meal slightly before. Maybe we need to do a 12-hour fast or a 14-hour fast. So kind of guiding through that.
Yeah. And that's the way. That's the way to make it effortless, is having that coach guide you through the hard parts, the parts which we talked about before, which is like learning to fail. So most people would end up quitting on their own. So you have the coach to help push you through those moments.
And you have someone almost giving you permission to fail. Because sometimes I feel like we do need permission, like someone saying like, hey, it's okay to do this. Yeah. And a coach is always going to do that, and they're going to encourage you to try, and they're not going to, beat you up when you fail or anything, or say that you suck. And I think that's really important.
Yeah. I mean, so I guess some of the takeaways is, one is ask yourself the question, how can I make this easy, right? So how can I make it as easy as possible? So try to simplify things as much as possible. And actually one thing we didn't talk about, and I'll try to touch on real quick, is the easiest way to simplify is not to simplify steps that you already do, is to try to eliminate steps in the process. So kind of it goes along the same lines of things we already talked. Don't try to cook super complex meals that are going to have 23 ingredients in the same meals. If you want to do that, maybe leave that for the weekend. Maybe make that a meal that you're going to enjoy on a Saturday or Sunday instead of going out. But if you try to simplify it as much as possible, where you're keeping simple meals throughout the week, making sure you have protein with every meal, getting three square meals a day.
3 squirrels,
baby.
that's the accent right there. Getting 3 square meals a day. Try to find the simplest approaches there, and keep it there. I got distracted. I don't even know where I'm going now.
I'm sorry. 3 squirrels a day.
Hey, some bro will pick that up.
Hey, he's gonna get shredded on 3 squirrels a day.
That's gonna be Gary. He doesn't have no more squirrels in his house. He's just cooking them all.
That's my dog's diet.
Oh God! All right, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. So yeah, I mean, going back to it, like trying to simplify things as much as possible, trying to make it easy. So ask yourself, how can you make this easy? Try to simplify your steps as much as possible. So what things are you doing? Set a pace. Set a pace of what you're gonna do and do that each day consistently, no matter the amount of motivation that you feel in that day. Try to automate as much as you can. Use those kind of tools. What else is something we talked about? Let me see if I have some of the notes. I mean, things like preventing, if instead of saying willpowering your way through not snacking at home, saying no when you're at the grocery store. I think that's most of the stuff we talk about. I'm not good at doing summaries, apparently.
I think that I mean, pretty
And
concise.
that's it. Just make it as easy as you can.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. I think
It all comes.
we try to overcomplicate everything.
Yeah.
We do. Yeah, I think that's human nature, though.
I think
and
it is.
I think a good thing to leave them with is, it can feel. This probably feels impossible, and not real, but it can literally be effortless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what feels hard and impossible can eventually feel effortless and be your lifestyle. It just, you have to get there. You have to work through some things.
Yeah, and remember, you have to try. You just have to give it a shot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because, and I think I told you this, Gary, is in order to make it effortless, it requires a little effort in the beginning. Like,
Yep.
it is going to take
Gotta
a little
pay up
extra
front.
effort. Yep, it's going to take a little extra effort. It's going to take a little extra intention. But then over time, it should feel simple.
It
should be
pays off
easy to
so
do.
much.
Yeah.
That little investment in the beginning.
All right. Well, hopefully that was helpful. And if you're interested, again, the book is called Effortless by Greg McKeown. So it's more like kind of a business book, but again, the principles of the book really, we thought, kind of carried over into a lot of like exercise, nutrition stuff. So if you are into reading and find it interesting, it's worth the deeper dive for you. And if you want to work with Diego, nutrition coaching, I think he has some spots open.
Yeah, I got five spots open right now. I don't even know how to.
5 squirrels.
Five squirrels open.
And
if
so
you're
can,
interested, Coastal Nutrition Coaching. So you probably can put the link in the
Yeah, show notes.
show notes. All right. Thanks for listening.
See ya.
bye.
As always, thanks for listening, guys. If you want to learn more, check us out at coastalfitnessva.com or garydeagle.com. We'll see you next time.